Guys, what do you think you're doing?
I'm the girl with the gun. Let's see what we can really do. Yippee!
Hey, did we wake you? Did we wake?
Greetings, gentle viewers, and welcome back to the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Nuzlocke. That's right, it's me, that random YouTuber you found in your recommended that one time. If you're new here, this is actually the second part in this series, so I highly recommend checking out the first video before watching further. Or even if you have watched the first video, perhaps you want to watch it again for a reminder of what happened before. Do it now, or else he will come for you. Anyway, before we begin, let me just take a moment to reflect on that first video, because there are a few things I need to briefly acknowledge in case you're expecting one of your suggestions to appear in this video. Initially, I was going to do some longer explanations here, but that would make for a very long and boring intro to the video. So instead, I'll try to keep things brief-ish, but if you want any more detail, it will be at the end of the video. The main thing you need to know is that if you left any kind of feedback about the rule set, for example about Pokeballs, your comments are seen and appreciated, and will be dealt with later. By the time that most of these comments came in, after an algorithm boost, I'd already recorded a lot of the gameplay for this video without that feedback. And then, to avoid confusion, I kept that consistent for the whole video. So yes, even this video still has exceptions to the rules and doesn't answer all of the nuanced questions about the run. But for now, assume that suggestions such as these have not been implemented, though I am aware of them. However, one thing I should talk about is the game difficulty, because I explicitly mentioned this at the end of the first video, that I was considering changing the difficulty from hard to normal mode. I think I underestimated the changes that hard mode makes to the game, so a lot of you were supportive of that idea. But once again, a lot of those comments came in after I'd recorded a lot of the gameplay. That said, my ineptitude is also to blame here, because I need to give a shout out to Temporaneo617. They suggested an alternative idea, and I said I would try it. And then I didn't. So why not? Well, here's what happened with the difficulty. When I finished the first video, I wanted to change to normal mode. But then, when I started recording for this video, which by the way was after I saw this comment, I went, it'll be fine, that's part of the challenge. So was it fine? No. Please note, this clip is for demonstration and comedic purposes only and does not reflect actual Nuzlocke gameplay. So the difficulty is the one rule that will be inconsistent throughout this video. For a while, we'll still be on hard mode, but sometime later, there will be a moment of magic, where we plead very nicely to our mortal enemies, and they decide to take it a little bit easier on us, and that's when we're on normal difficulty. We're sticking with normal for the rest of the run, and that's final. But anyway, here's the credit for the idea that I didn't use, and it's actually extending the length of my content by being mentioned. So thanks! There are honestly a lot more things I would love to say about the rules, or the video style and where it can be improved, but if I did all of that, we'd be here all day. So if you want to know, there's more at the end of the video, and stuff that I'll probably just talk about in the future. But right now, there are just two more things I do want you to know. Number one, whilst making this video, I transitioned over to some different softwares and hardwares, which kept resulting in changes to the video settings in my recordings. So if at any points in this video you notice that the gameplay resolution or frame rate or colouring of the game is a bit off, that is why. Actually, quite recently I learned how to fix a lot of this, so it's not as bad as it sounds. You might not even notice it, and I could have kept it a secret. But I had this conscience that if I didn't say it, he will come for me. I did re-record all of the cutscenes in the proper quality, you don't want to know how long that took, but the side effect is that the characters will be changing outfits quite a lot, because it's all recorded in a weird order. What more could I do? It's been a real headache, so I simply hoped that the loving viewers would understand. The other thing I wanted to mention, final one I promise, is the most important. I've alluded to it before, and that is that I want to start streaming this run. Some of you will only be watching the videos I make here, which is fine, but if you genuinely listen to all my explanations and are still somewhat entertained, then you probably have some interest in being a part of the live experience, helping to suggest new strategies, stopping me from being stupid, discovering all of the inside jokes that will be created, and the general embodiment of I was here. But I also want to use this as an opportunity to start streaming a bit more and stream some other games in a more casual manner. If you have any interest in why this video took so long, as well as my future plans for the channel, then can I please direct you to this other video, which will be uploaded and available by the time you finish this one. Alrighty, so everything up until now was meant to be the introduction to this video. And actually, if you include the last video, and the rules video, and all the other stuff I still haven't explained, that was all meant to be the introduction to the whole Nuzlocke. There is an alternate timeline in which everything up until now has just been 10 minutes or so. But these things are always more complicated than they seem, especially when I'm involved. So I'm sure you will want me to shut up and get on with it. To go back to our Xenoblade memes secretly disguised as a serious challenge. To find out what happens next in the misadventures of Ouroboros under my leadership. It's been nearly 3 years in the making, but finally, without further ado, let us continue the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Nuzlocke. We are so back. So, our progress from last time. The group are on the run and are essentially outlaws in the world, but they're heading over to this big place called Sword March. We've just reached the point where we've completed a couple of tutorials and now have full freedom to the class system, and are allowed to make our party into whatever setup we like. So let's review what classes we currently have available, using the Class Tracker 3000. The name is a work in progress. Noah, Uni and Lance all lost their starting classes to Herbert. Then Mio and Tyon also lost their original classes, meaning that out of our 6 Ouroboros heroes, only one still has the ability to use their original class. If you told me that at the start of the run, I don't think I would have guessed it was Senna. In addition to that, Tyon also lost his shiny new class from Uni. So that would leave us with this. But we also have to remember that we don't unlock the classes automatically. Each character gets one class for free from the tutorial, but all the other classes have to be unlocked by playing alongside the other characters, which we haven't done enough of yet. And for the purposes of this tracker, we're only going to add a class once we've unlocked it. So the actual classes that we have available right now looks more like this. You might spot a small problem here, and his name is Tyon. So there's going to be one more little exception for now, which is that Tyon is allowed to use Uni's Medic Gunner class until he unlocks one of the others. I know this seems like a cop-out, and that's because it is. But I promise that's the last exception. We are still very much in the early phase of the game where the feel of this run hasn't really been established. We just need to get a little bit further until I can present to you the real awesomeness of this challenge. In either case, our first order of business is to unlock more of these classes. I was planning to do this simply by grinding a few easier enemies, but this took a lot longer than I expected. Maybe I'm wrong, but I distinctly remember that you didn't have to play for very long to unlock the different classes. Maybe it was because I'm on hard mode, maybe it was because they were just easier enemies, or maybe I'm just an idiot. As for why I'm specifically using easy enemies, you do have to understand here that I am absolutely terrified of every single monster. Any one of these seemingly harmless wild animals could result in the death of my YouTube career. I wonder that if I do end up live streaming this run, how much of it will just be casual chat streams whilst we sit and grind to unlock classes. So I spent a while running around Milik Meadows, and at most was halfway to unlocking a class. So I said, forget this, we're gonna go fight some harder enemies. Went into the next area and found a nice target in this little Hox. He then called his buddies over and basically said, this is my gang's turf, and we promptly ran away. So we then spent a second while running around Millik Meadows, which included a couple of heart attacks, having to skip travel and respawn the enemies because I took down that many of them. And finally we started unlocking some classes. Remember though that the one person I really want a class on is Tyon, because he's technically illegal right now, and for some reason he just wouldn't unlock a class. I spent nearly 2 hours in total grinding just to unlock these classes, and just like that joke about buses, when you want one, you suddenly get two at once. Now look, I know they were easier enemies, and that's probably why it took so long. I've learned my lesson, and I'm hoping that with live chat by my side, we should be more capable of taking on harder enemies in the future. So after all of that, we've now unlocked these classes. Tyon is no longer breaking the law, at least not this one, and I made 2 other changes to balance the party. And with that, we finally moved on, left the Millik Meadows behind, and set forth into the Eagus Wilderness. We get a little cutscene where the group are trying to decide which route would be the best to take out of 2 options. One route is faster, but is more risky as it heads past an Agnian colony, who are not very nice right now. The other route is much safer, but will take longer, and will also be very hot. Ultimately, the majority vote is to take the safe route. That said, it is worth noting that in this Nuzlocke run, any kind of safe route is still absolutely terrifying. Just because we have a bit more freedom with our setup doesn't mean this game suddenly got any easier. I was still incredibly scared of every single monster, and the game turned into this very interesting genre by incorporating the element of stealth. You see, remember these guys from earlier? Turns out there's a lot of them in this area. And as discussed, it's usually not possible to just fight one of them. So we had to avoid all of the pack animals and only fight the lonely enemies with no family to save them. That actually got really sad. Moving on. I don't quite know the word for this, but the experience was like one of those games where you're trying to fight into enemy territory and you're very slowly gaining ground, but not in a pure stealth way. And not in a grindy way either. It was actually kind of fun despite not doing a whole lot. Now it's a bit hard to show this through video footage because I'm literally just running around, so to visualize my point, here is a map I created with this wavy line being my pathing. So we gradually progressed on until we found a collapsed Nopon by the side of the road. One of the best things about Nopon is figuring out how to pronounce their names. This dude is Pain, Pan, Pane. He probably got bullied as a child and called PP. What's that? You don't care about how your name is pronounced because you're instead about to die of dehydration if we don't give you some water? Side questing. How about instead of actual water, we give you food that has water in it? Like dark grapes. Or dance apples? It turns out that Shil, the Nopon from earlier, is PP's apprentice, so I think we did a good thing. Thanks, little guy, you added 1,000 words to the script due to me realizing my incapability to explain this game's plot in a sensible chronological order. Let's get back to it. My biggest problem, once again, were all of these enemies that appear in small groups. Each individual enemy is easy to take down, but once 2 or 3 get on you at the same time, there is barely any chance to make a safe escape. And I'd really appreciate if anyone knows what the mechanics are as for whether these enemies are supposed to attack individually or in groups. Because sometimes when I attacked the first enemy, only that one would fight, and the rest of the group would ignore us, and notice how close those other enemies are and are just choosing to do nothing. But other times, like with these Volf, they will be further away, but then decide to come and help out, leading to a sudden 3-pronged attack that results in Uni's death. Oh yeah, Uni lost a class by the way, and we had to reorganize some things. So we're now about halfway through the Eagus Wilderness, but the heat is starting to get to us. Especially Mio. How Lanz is surviving whilst in this fur coat, I do not know. I sympathise greatly with Mio as I am not a lover of the heat in any way, shape or form. Like, genuinely most of the summer is too hot for me and I'm from England. But then we spot some
water,
and all is well. I skipped all of the enemies in the walk to the lake because we're about to do a very, very nice quest. Before that though, let's actually relax in the water.
Yeah!
Wow!
Mr. Grumpy doesn't take a jump in the water because he has better things to take care of than these trivial entertainments, or something like that. Tyon talks to Noah about something called annihilation events. They're fun. An annihilation event is when, for some unknown reason, a little piece of the world just kinda evaporates. Except sometimes it's actually really big pieces of the world. This sounds like a problem. And no one seems to care about solving the problem, so forget about it. It is a bit weird that it's not regarded as some global crisis, but then again, this is just another part of the whole idea that normality is however you perceive it. This is just a part of how the world works, and so you don't question it. Really, this is just a scene to introduce annihilation events to the player, and so there's no real conclusion we need to draw from it, even though I literally tried to do just that. Once we've freshened up, it's time for a decent meal. At the mention of food, Manana suddenly appears, in the same way that any cats do when you walk within 5 miles of your kitchen. In deciding to help out Riku and Manana, we get the incredibly named quest. Riku and Manana. This is a forced story quest, but it's designed to show us some new gaming concepts. The first of these is Manana's cooking. Whenever we are resting at a campsite, we are able to use the cooking feature to cook some cooking. And these actually have benefits, like giving a temporary boost to the amount of XP or money we earn. But because this is the start of the game, we only have one option available to us. So, like it or not, brace yourselves, because tonight you will be receiving a divine portion of the critically acclaimed Manana's Battle Soup.
Yum.
I don't know how she made radishes, carrot, and rabbit into potato stars and whatever this is, but how could you possibly doubt that adorable smile? So now we know about Manana's cooking, but what can Riku do? Riku did a bunch of general stuff back in Colony 9, but his specialty lies in maintenance of equipment. And for our purposes, this means gem crafting. They were nice enough to give us the ingredients for Manana's cooking, but not for the gem crafting, so we have to collect that ourselves. Maybe it's secretly a plot device to force us into a battle to learn a new gameplay mechanic. We have a tough enemy coming up, so I decided to do a bit more preparing. By losing 2 more classes. Okay, listen, I know that this Nuzlocke is looking bad, but stick with me here. I promise you, the best is yet to come. Insert party reshuffle, and we are back to the objective at hand. We have to fight this Aspar to get some stuff for Riku's gems. There's a bunch of fighting, and then this happens. Well, would you look at that? It turns out this fight was secretly a plot device to force us into a battle to learn a new gameplay mechanic. So in this scene, everyone basically says we need to decide on a common strategy, and everyone comes up with their own strategy, therefore not solving the problem, but somewhere along the way we come up with chain attacks. What's a chain attack? Well, you fill up this little circle by doing stuff, and then you press a button, and then this happens.
We are more than capable!
How about something like this?
Imagine if you could pause the enemy's movements for an indeterminate amount of time, whilst you command your entire team, however you like, to deal a gazillion damage. That's what chain attacks are. Chain attacks are a staple in the Xenoblade series, but the mechanics differ in each game. Xenoblade 3 is a little more complex, but is easily my favourite chain attack system in the series. You choose a main effect, use a bunch of arts from your party in any order, and each character has a number of tactical points, also known as brain power, which fill up the gauge. Then repeat that 2 more times, our damage multiplier keeps increasing, big numbers appear on the screen, and we all shout,
Yippee!
And those are just the basics. In the end game, if you can set up your party correctly, this is where you have fun and see just how far you can stretch this game. The world record damage for a single chain attack stretches well beyond 1 million. Sorry, 1 billion. 1 billion damage. Let me put that number into context. If every single human being living in the United States of glorious North America contributed 3 damage to a chain attack, that's right, all of you American viewers, you get 3 damage each. If we put this all together in one United States chain attack, that total would still be lower than the highest achievements of this game. Over the Xenoblade series, the general amount of damage in chain attacks has been logarithmically increasing, so I am excited to see what awaits us in the next entry. What were we doing again? Oh yeah, this guy. Well, let's bring ourselves back to reality, because our first ever chain attack did not quite do 1 billion damage, but rather a pitiful 8,460. However, that was because I decided to focus a bit more on healing. Since we can use anyone's arts separate to their current recharge, we can essentially get some free healing if we want. That's another quiet benefit of chain attacks. Speaking of quiet benefits, at the end of the rules video I teased that there were going to be a couple of weird strategy benefits based on the rules we created. And this fight actually happens to demonstrate 2 of them, so let me explain. Before the chain attack happened, at the very start of the fight, Taion lost the Zephyr class. Now, with the rules we established earlier, Taion is allowed to continue using the Zephyr class until the end of this fight. But the loophole is that now we should actually get Taion to take as much aggro as possible, because we don't count how many times he runs out of HP, just that it happened once. By taking the aggro, he has nothing more to lose, but he can protect other party members. Strategy benefit number 1, divert aggro towards party members who have already lost a class in this fight. But wait a minute, that was the first Aspar fight. Then we had some talking about chain attacks, which means that this is technically a different second fight. So Taion has to change his class now, right? Well, no. This is technically a different fight, but between the 2 fights, we never actually got an opportunity to use the menu and change the class. Therefore, Taion can still use the Zephyr class and can still take all the aggro to protect the other party members. This was a bit of a niche example, but imagine this in a big story segment, where we have several boss fights and cutscenes in a row, what I refer to as Xenoblade moments. In Xenoblade moments, we don't have to go and change our classes for every fight every time we lose a party member, and that is going to save us some real headache. We're allowed to use the same classes so long as we never actually get the opportunity to change them. Strategy benefit number 2, Xenoblade moments are awesome. Well, obviously they're awesome, but specifically for Nuzlocke reasons. But let me make clear, if we lose any of those fights, i.e. with a full party wipe, the sequence is broken, because we do get access to the main menu and therefore have an opportunity to change the class. In this case, the point here is that Taion is finally able to do something useful. However, when the enemy does this big scary topple move again, the panic alarms begin sounding. For the most part, I've been playing as defenders in order to try and control the aggro, but since Taion is in the clear and Senna has a ton of HP, that's not a concern right now. So I swapped over to lands to try and find the best healing drugs I could find. It was a bit scary at first, but somehow it all worked out really well and we pulled through. So it's time to take another step back out of the rabbit hole and remember that this entire section on chain attacks and this fight was all just a part of this standard quest to learn what Riku can do, other than dominate us with his Giga Chat aura. Riku's skills enable us to craft gems that we can equip on our characters, and there are 4 categories of gems that we can make. 1 for each of the main party roles and a 4th category for some all-rounders. And as we progress through the game, we can craft each gem up to 10 different levels. Now at the moment, our resources are very limited, so I wanted to be careful about which gems I decided to craft. Right now we can only equip 1 gem on each character, so it is important that we make the gems that are most useful to us. I made the top gem in each of these 3 categories, so that each of the party's roles would have something beneficial. And I was able to get all of these to level 2. But our focus then turns to the orange category of gems, because these are where it's at. Ironclad boosts health, which is obviously good. Steady Striker shortens our auto attack interval, which means we're dealing more damage, and Agnes classes will charge up their arts faster. Double Strike gives a chance to deal an auto attack twice, and then we have Empowered Combo, which boosts damage from cancelling arts. You should be cancelling almost all of your arts anyway, so this is a useful damage boost. Hi guys, a little editor's note here. So I've just mentioned those first 4 orange gems, but I haven't mentioned the last one. And the next part of my script for that last gem says, and then there's the last one which decreases aggro, so that's not really worth it at the moment. Yeah, I don't really know why I said that, because if you didn't know, in this game you gain aggro not just by attacking, but also by using healing arts. And if you didn't notice, 3 of those earlier deaths that we had were of healing classes. So this gem might actually be really useful for us, but I didn't notice that at the time, and so I didn't craft this gem at all. But I just wanted to acknowledge that before I inevitably get many comments about this, and this is a prime example of why I need a live chat at my side in order for this run to be anywhere near successful. So please come and join the streams that will be happening soon. Back to your scheduled video. And then there's the last one which decreases aggro, so that's not really worth it at the moment. So I crafted all of the above except the last one. Now, I appreciate that there have been several times in this video where I have changed the entire setup of my party and not really mentioned it, and that this video in general has been a bit all over the place. So now that we have gems, I'll try to slow down for a minute and explain what my current party setup is like. Just to say, I have been experimenting with ways of displaying the classes on screen so that I don't have to keep reminding you of all the changes I'm making. But I just can't find a nice way of doing this while also layering it over the game footage. I think it would work if we had it as a sidebar like this. So this is the layout I'm going to be trying for the upcoming streams, but I don't know whether this will work in the video right now. This is an updated look at our Class Tracker 3000, following the earlier losses of Uni, Mio and Senna with the Tactician class. Oh wait, is that right? We've seriously lost Tyon's Tactician class on 4 out of 6. I'm starting to think all of those thin-like paper jokes accidentally made it into the game. At the moment, Noah and Lance are our healers with Uni's Medic Gunner class, which is not great, but that's how this run works. I gave them the gem with the healing boost. Mio is one of our attackers with Noah's Swordfighter class. Our other attacker is now Tyon. Tyon is actually in a really bad situation, because after losing the Zephyr class in the last fight, the 2 classes from the previous video, and having not yet unlocked Noah and Lance's classes, there is only one class he is currently able to use, Senna's class, the Ogre. So we are once again at a stage where if Tyon dies, the entire run is over, but at least we're making progress. That leaves Uni and Senna as our 2 defenders. Uni is being Lance's class, the Heavy Guard. This is not a great class, but we need it right now for the topple art. I gave her the HP boost. Senna, however, is using Mio's class, the Zephyr, which is much better. Zephyr is an evasion tank, so instead of HP, I gave Senna the agility boost. From our starting 6 classes, the Zephyr is probably the best of them, or at least the best to be playing as, so I'll generally be playing as the character who has Zephyr equipped. Or sometimes Tyon because he can't seem capable of defending himself. So with that done, our next objective is simply to press onward through the Eagus Wilderness. Unfortunately, we have some boss fights coming up, which means it's once again time to be incredibly scared of everything in a 100-mile radius. To try and avoid those groups of enemies we mentioned earlier, we fortunately have the use of the lure function. This means that we can sometimes draw one enemy of a group alone so that we can defeat it more easily. But again, sometimes the entire group still aggroes, so I still don't understand how this works. The reason I bring up the lure function is specifically to show you that I made an interesting discovery. Did you see it? The lure function just missed. This isn't because we're too far away, as this feature only activates when we are close enough. Maybe some of you already knew this and think that this is not a very interesting discovery as was suggested. Meanwhile, I had absolutely no idea this could happen, and in thinking about the logistics of how this actually works, some questions have entered my mind. The idea of this luring animation is that you're throwing a stone at the enemy to draw its attention, and you can see that the stone actually deals a grand total of 1 damage. But all this time, including through the other games in the series, I took this to be a fake animation, that there was just something coded which caused the enemy to take 1 damage, and that there is no actual stone being thrown here. But if we consider that it is possible for the lure animation to miss entirely, then this does beg the question, is the player actually throwing a stone? That's right, we may have just stumbled upon the greatest science experiment in Xenoblade history. This may look like an empty animation, but the absolute chance that Monolith Soft may have taken the time and dedication to actually calculate the trajectory of the luring stone such that it can miss when the enemy moves away from where it was originally standing. But there's more! Is it possible that the physical weight and strength of each of the 6 characters can alter the throw of the stone in just such a way such that some of the characters may have a larger luring radius than others? Does each character secretly have an accuracy rating coded into them which determines the probability of their success at luring the enemy? Then does the stone create an everlasting mark in the ground which permanently alters the state of the world around it? Is the shape of the world actually shaped by luring stones? And most importantly of all, where does the stone come from? Do they draw a stone from the powers of the iris? Do they draw it like a blade? Do the stones disappear afterwards, or do they stay in place? Is there perhaps a secret, everlasting source of infinite luring stones, perhaps guarded by the Nopon Archsage himself? Or greater still, is it perhaps just a gameplay feature with no intended consequences? I would be curious to hear your theories in the comments. Now at this point, for what feels like the 6th time in this playthrough, I realised that no amount of grinding was going to change the outcome here, and I kinda just had to face what was coming. So I went to the campsite to make final preparations. We had enough bonus XP to get everyone up to level 17, then I went to look at gems and realised we literally just did all of that, and then finally, do you remember all that time ago when I mentioned I was changing the difficulty from hard down to normal? Well, this was the point at which I did that. To test my newfound confidence, I tried to go up against a big scary snake, but he was big and scary and snaky, so ultimately we just ran and got saved by the cutscene. So what happens here? Well, Noah and Mio start talking about Noah's blade because it's special. Almost as if he's the main character of a JRPG, and therefore has an important glowing sword that we need to learn the history of. We get a flashback to when the Kavesi trio were younguns, and they're doing some training. But for some reason, Noah is unable to summon his blade. He just can't. He's able to train all the same with a makeshift weapon, but he can't actually summon a blade. Then Garvel the bully comes along, so Noah is like... But ultimately Noah's weapon gets broken. So Noah decides to go to Riku to get a new weapon. And so Riku presents him with a common sword.
What's this?
Magic sword, lucky 7. In distant past were 7 legendary swords prized of swords. True, this sword possessed incredible armor from 7 types of steel, sliced to no other sword like it in existing.
What the hell?
Just a normal weapon to give to this child. The sword is so strong that it can cut through Lanz's weapon without even trying. Supposedly, it can even damage a Phoronis. But Noah, being the ultimate philosopher that he is, decides that he doesn't want this sword, because it's too powerful. And again, this shows the strength of character in Noah. Even though the entire world, the entire point of your existence is to kill and war against the other nation, he doesn't want a powerful weapon. But if there's one person who can out-philosopher Noah, it's Riku.
Noah want Lance and friends to kick buckets?
No, what the spark?
Same as letting friends die.
No, it's not.
If friends not fight, cannot survive.
Sure, but I don't need to use your sword.
Then, why Noah not call Blade?
It's not out of choice, I just can't.
False. Riku see through like transparent. Noah can call Blade. Just no big desire of fighting spirit.
Riku?
Hey, is he serious? Noah?
It turns out that Noah could actually summon his blade all this time, but didn't want to because he's afraid of the destructive nature of the world. Which is pretty significant, coming from someone who is our equivalent of 11 years old, and is actually just 1 year old in his world, and you have to admire the fact that he's managed to hide his blade all this time. And then Riku says that it's important that he understands the power of the weapon, so it's a strength and not a weakness, etc, etc, so he gives Noah the Lucky 7 sword. And so that's the story of Noah's blade. He actually has Lucky 7 concealed within his own blade, should he ever need it. Noah also mentions that Mio is only the second person to notice his blade, the first being Ethel from that prior flashback, and that's a good segue to see Ethel looking a bit evil. Meanwhile, Noah and the gang press on, and we get ambushed by Colony 4. Noah goes out to talk to Ethel, because they know each other from way back when, and we actually see that Ethel sees Noah as this black fog monster. So they shoot him and he runs back. Gameplay transition. I actually took down a few of these Kevesi soldiers to get a bit more XP until I realized that they were just infinitely spawning, and so we ran to the next cutscene. At this point we see that Ethel is not even afraid to kill her own troops if it gives a chance at destroying us. But it's also pretty clear that this is done under the influence of the Mystery Console Man. We have no choice but to run into this cave, and there's actually some black fog here which for some reason disturbs the console's powers. Unfortunately, there are a lot of enemies in this cave, and even worse, you're forced into battle with more of the Kevesi soldiers. So there was a lot of fighting, which made me quite scared. But we actually did really well and were never even close to having any character lose a class. We're now coming to the exit of the cave, and so we have this cutscene where they for some reason do this classic JRPG thing where they try to foreshadow something, but they make it way too obvious that we're about to run straight into a trap. We also have another campsite, which is a further indication that there is probably a boss fight here. I didn't make any more gems, but I did make another edition of Manana's Battle Soup to ensure we kept getting the XP and Class XP boost. There was a shop from which I bought nothing. But it did remind me to look at people's equipment, of which I changed nothing. So we head to our inevitable boss fight, and with a location name like Hegemon's Seat, you know it's gonna be good. It turns out that running in that cave forced us into an ambush, almost as if they planned it. Ethel then jumps a 5,000 feet drop without so much as a scratch, and uh-oh, we have to fight Silvercoat Ethel. So it's boss fight time. In addition to Ethel herself, there are also 3 Kevesi soldiers, who we definitely want to take down first. I decided to go for the Keves Defender first for reasons I don't remember, because this part of the script is actually being written 18 months after the gameplay, but whatever. It was clear that our healers were taking a lot of aggro. Firstly with Lance getting a bit low on health, then followed by Noah, who barely scraped by on 51 HP. If only there was some way we could further reduce our aggro. But we took one enemy down, and by this point we've already dealt some splash damage to the others. We then went for the Keves attacker, who lasted for precisely 10 seconds, that is not an exaggeration, and Noah got his health back. I then realized that the Kevesi healer had actually moved to behind my camera angle in what I can only describe as actually quite a big brain move, meaning I didn't spot him for a while. But when we did spot him, he lasted a total of 4 seconds. So the smaller enemies were way easier than I expected, meaning we can now focus everything on Ethel herself. As the fight continued, Senna was gradually losing health, but not too fast because she's dodging most of the attacks because she's Zephyr. We even got a break topple days going as we built up towards a chain attack. The chain attack ended up being perfectly timed as Senna was about to die, but also because we just activated Ethel's Enraged status, which would presumably mean she starts doing a lot more damage. Our choice for the first order was good all round. I chose Senna's for no particular reason. For the second order, I actually wanted to divert the aggro off of Senna, so I went for neither of the aggro related options. That left me with Tyon's option. I also took the chance to heal Senna a bit, and with our damage multiplier stacking up, Tyon did a whole lot of damage with the Ogre class. For the final order, I chose Mio, for reasons again I cannot remember. Looking back on this, she really wasn't the right choice here because I just said I didn't want to change the aggro. Once again, live chat equals less mistakes equals come join the streams. In the end, it didn't matter, with the very last hit depleting Ethel's HP and granting us the overkill bonus, which doubles the XP we receive. And so, we beat Silvercoat Ethel with no class losses. Next, of course, we have the win in the fight, don't win in the cutscene, and this whole mass of rock crumbles, killing everyone. Oh no, they all survived with no injuries. The group are struggling, so Senna and Mio suggest using the Ouroboros form. You know, that thing we did a while ago. But once again, we see Noah restrained to use violence.
Ready?
We can't.
But why not?
It's too powerful. We could just wind up killing her.
Even against a life or death enemy, Noah chooses not to kill. Then Ethel starts screaming in pain, presumably because the black fog begins interfering with the console's transmission to the iris. This allows Noah to try again in getting through to Ethel, and this time it starts to work. But not before the console steps in, smacks her with lightning, and generally introduces himself as a badass.
Ethel!
I suppose it's more fun this way. Well, don't you agree? It's the big bad boss. Boom!
Noah may have been hesitant to attack Ethel, but there is far less hesitation when dealing with the console. And so we have finally unlocked the gameplay ability to interlink Noah and Mio into the Ouroboros form. When using the Ouroboros form, the two characters in that form essentially nullify their health bars. They don't take any direct damage from the enemy, but they also can't receive any healing. This means it can be used as an emergency button. If one of the two is about to reach 0 HP, you can interlink into the Ouroboros and delay the inevitable, as long as you can prepare an opportunity to heal later on. The Ouroboros form itself is not infinite, it has this heat gauge. The gauge gradually fills up as you use the Ouroboros, and gradually unfills up as you don't use it. Which, when you think about it, is kinda like a flame clock, and it's almost as if they did that on purpose. However, if you completely fill up the gauge, you overheat, and you have to wait for the whole gauge to be empty before you can use Ouroboros again, so we have to be very careful in managing its use. On the flip side, it has some very powerful attacks, and is generally omega cool to use. So Console K is our next foe. He summoned a few more Kavesi soldiers, but once again we took care of them instantly, and we even got a level up. With the use of the Ouroboros, we managed to get up to our chain attack with full HP, meaning there's no healing required and we can go all out on the damage. I started with Noah's order, which gives a higher chance to bypass enemy defense during the chain attack. I then went with Mio, again I can't remember why, but my guess would be that because the use of the Ouroboros was increasing Noah and Mio's aggro. So I did this to try and counter the aggro they were gaining, and make sure that Console K was attacking Senna. Once again, Taion did a whole lot of damage, which might mean I'm underestimating the Ogre class. The final order was Taion's, and once again we got the overkill right at the end of the chain attack. In both of these last two fights, I did not expect that the chain attack would take us right through the second half of their HP, and further still, we still have no class losses in this segment. But as you should expect from a JRPG, especially Xenoblade, just 2 phases of a boss fight isn't enough. Instead, the console begins to light up, and transforms into this hideous being, similar to the other Mobius guy we fought before. With the power of Mobius, the console is not only able to control the irises of the soldiers, but also take their life.
He did it again. No way. He's stealing from the clocks.
My dear boy, your vaunted intuition is shit! I'm not stealing from them. I, as Mobius, have the right to do with the flame clocks as I please.
There's then this interesting conflict between Noah and Taion. Noah wants to protect Ethel as his friend, whereas Taion sees the more pragmatic argument that they just need to kill Mobius.
But our friends from Colony 4!
Wake up, Noah. They're not your friends anymore. They're his fuel.
Even so!
The relationship between Noah and Taion is one of my favourites in the whole game, and we'll continue to see how that develops. Either way, since the console has infinite healing, we need an out-of-the-box strategy in order to beat Mobius. Fortunately, we have Noah, the ultimate out-of-the-box philosopher that he is.
Come on!
The flame clock. What if we smashed it?
You what? How should I know something like... Do you mean...
But what if we just end up killing everybody?
This is one of those cutscenes that's really difficult to just condense into highlights and not just show it in its entirety. There's the established trust between Noah and Mio.
Whatever life is lost, I won't let you shoulder it all alone.
The loyalty of Lance to Noah.
We've got to! It's the only way! On my head be it!
Spark
fuck are you on about? I'm not gonna let you take the fall alone.
And for the first time, a real sense of unity in the group.
Nah, snuff it. Fine. Have it your way. Get going. Uni.
Cover fire! Leave it to me!
Tyon, Senna, we need you too.
Understood.
Just say when, guys.
And it's from that newfound trust and unity that new powers emerge.
Noah!
Mimi!
You sure? I'm a nobody. I'm just practicing. Hey, Senna, there's no need for this. Sorry.
Watch out! Come on! They want to take you out the running! We can take care of ourselves! Just go!
Lance, that form. You mean...
Hey, I'm here too! Senna as well! So then...
Well, looky here. Found you. That mother.
Lance! We can't keep this up!
God, stick it out. Was that it? All right. Now for the coup de grace. Get a load of this!
Noah! Lance! Until the day of your fall, please just live.
Your pardon, that's idiocy and certain death.
To where this was taken.
I think Yorin did the right thing. We can go through here, and then we're out. You must flee for the colony.
Mom! Dim away!
We then have this awesome piece of music called The Weight of Life, which really sums up this cutscene. This whole scene is a full 11 minutes long, and in the moment I first saw it, it felt like the best 11 minutes of my life. Once again, it's really hard to cut down a scene like this, so I hope you don't mind there being a few segments of this playthrough where I just show the scenes as they are. In a game like Xenoblade, you do sometimes need to embrace your inner child a bit to enjoy the anime moments, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
I can't heal.
No, that's nothing, Shane! Go now! Do it!
Mio!
Yeah!
Huh? What? Did that not do it?
How is it so strong?
Then we'll try! No use! Bloody embers!
Oh, the futility! The flame clock is life itself! One might say, a coalescence of the will to live. I very much doubt it's going to break that easily now, is it? Smart.
Our attempts to break the flame clock are unsuccessful. But then we remember the one thing that this boss fight has been missing. A callback to an earlier piece of plot information and character development that hasn't yet served its purpose.
Even armor of Uranus gets sliced to itsy bits.
If it can really take a Uranus clean out, then maybe...
Mio! Try again! Cancel the interlink after we jump!
What's the plan?
Looks like the time's come!
What are you talking about?
Fine,
Ready when you are.
No! What are you... Your interlink? But why? impossible! The flame clock cannot be broken! What is this? Who are these people? The flame clock's power! Utterly lost! No! But how?
How's Ethel? Everyone okay?
She's gonna be fine.
Seems she only lost consciousness.
Right. That's good. Which leaves...
Someone who deserves a real thrashing.
Playing with our lives like they're nothing. You're dead meat.
And so our true enemy is revealed at last. Phase 3, Mobius K. Despite having lost those healing powers, Mobius K is no joke of a fight. But neither are we with our new Ouroboros powers. We can now interlink with any of the 3 pairs of characters. What's interesting is that the arts within the Ouroboros form are generally based around the character's original classes and behaviours. So the Noah and Mio Ouroboros is a bit more aggressive, the Lance and Senna Ouroboros is more defensive, and the Uni and Tyon Ouroboros is healing and support. This adds a further dimension to the class system, where in addition to the various classes and arts we're using, we now have an additional set of roles that we always have access to. So Uni and Tyon can always act as an additional healing role should we need it in an emergency. However, despite these new powers, Mobius K has a ton of health. Our chain attack didn't do nearly as much damage this time, but we did get a dazed combo which delayed his enraged status. Unfortunately, that didn't last too long, and the oncoming damage quickly increased, finally resulting in another class loss, this time of Senna's Zephyr class. But once again, we can now flip our strategy. Senna is now immune to further class losses, so we can go all out with her. I don't really know how to make the narration on these fights consistently interesting. It might be better in the future if I'm able to also switch to the livestream commentary. Again, I take your suggestions here. From there, we just kept slogging away with no problems with our HP, until we built up another chain attack, and I saved it right until the end so that we could maximize the overkill bonus. When we overkill the enemy in a chain attack, we get this XP bonus that continues to rack up the same way as our damage multiplier does. In this Nuzlocke, we'll be needing as much XP as possible, so we'll always be trying this on boss fights if we can. Plus, overkilling the enemy is just plain cool. So in the 3-phase gauntlet versus Ethel, Console K, and Mobius K, we lost only a single class, which in my opinion is a great success. We then unmask the console, like a Scooby-Doo villain, and see his wrinkled face. The same as Guernica, again making the group realise that there is more to this world than they know. Remember, this is the first time they'd ever seen a person grow old. Ethel wakes up and we explain everything that happened. We then have this very interesting dialogue, which I don't think gets enough appreciation. Noah instinctively goes to play the Off-Seer melodies for the deceased console. Everyone else thinks that's really messed up because he was killing everyone, but eventually Noah and Mio both decide to join in with the off-seeing. What's your take? Should they have played the Off-Seer melody or not? It's a tough one. I usually like to lean on the side of goodness, in the belief that there is a story behind every villain, and although we never get to learn anything more about Mobius K, that doesn't mean the story doesn't exist. Of course, that doesn't disregard everything the console did. It's just an acknowledgement that he had human feelings as well, and I'm really touched that they included this scene in the game. It's also another part of Noah's amazing character that he even shows sadness and empathy towards his greatest enemy.
Just now, I felt his essence brush past me. It felt just the same as ours. So, I feel I have to do this, you know?
Furthermore, he's still shaking from the idea of smashing the flame clock, because he feels guilty for risking the lives of the entire colony.
Sorry, you didn't have to help.
It's fine. It's our duty.
I'm worried I didn't play well.
But why? You did it expertly, just like last time.
I still can't stop shaking.
Because of the flame clock?
Yeah. I was terrified.
Still, all thanks to your decision, we're alive. You're really something.
It was a team effort.
This game's marketing stated that Noah and Mio are meant to be dual protagonists, but I believe it's a clear fact that Noah is meant to be the sole protagonist, and no one can convince me otherwise. That's not because I don't like Mio, it's just that Noah's character is on another level. You know how in every other JRPG, the earlier sections of the game generally revolve around revelations about the way of the world and who the evil guys are, that seem really obvious to the player but are a complete surprise to the characters. It's my one real gripe with the way most of these games seem to operate. Well, Noah was finally the answer to the alternative. What if the protagonist was intelligent enough to perceive all this before it was stated out? All of the soldiers of this world are born into a life of combat, and they never know anything else, such that they don't even question anything else, like I said in the last video. But in this chapter, we've seen flashbacks to the past, where Noah was just entering his second term, and even at that age, it's already clear that he thinks above and beyond others around him. He knew there was more to this world. He knew there was meant to be more to their lives than fighting. He just didn't have the power, or perhaps the confidence, to do anything about it. But would you look at that, I think I've gone down another rabbit hole. We'll save more talking about Noah's character for later. Back to the present, and things are a little bit awkward, because an entire Kevesi colony was just saved by a force of outlaws, including some Agnians. We do see the immense loyalty that Ethel commands to her units, but as expected there is still tension in the air. We head into the Colony 4 command center, and off-screen, Noah presumably explains to Ethel all about the flame clock disappearing and the Ouroboros symbols. By destroying the flame clock, all of the soldiers in Colony 4 now have their flame clocks removed, meaning they don't have to constantly fight to stay alive. But Ethel sees none of the Ouroboros symbols, so it seems that that remains a power limited to our main group. And just as a further to everything I just said about Noah, there are similar points about Ethel, who clearly understands that there is something greater here than just the Keves versus Agnes war. So we're now released to explore Colony 4, but not before a few more tutorials. First of all, we get access to Noah's new talent art, which he can equip on any class. Unfortunately, it's not nearly as strong as it was in the cutscene, these things never are, but it's a nice bonus. More importantly, we also unlock the Ouroboros skill trees. I didn't think too hard about which nodes to pick, in the hope that live chat will be able to direct me in future, but I still spent all the soul points we had to get some various bonuses. I then went around and spoke to all the other characters, as any true JRPG player should do. It's our first chance to see how destroying the flame clock has really affected these people's lives. They're still in the uncertain and confused phase, so there's a lot of mixed emotion, but no one actually tried to kill us on the way, so we're making progress. There are a ton of paths up and around the Pharaonis. If you've never played an open world JRPG, they generally let you go to more places than you realise, and there's a real satisfaction in finding these secret locations. In Xenoblade, you also get XP for discovering locations, so it is worth your time. I then discovered that we're actually completely free to leave the colony and just roam around. Unfortunately, the game does create a landslide to stop you going into the next main area. I guess we have no choice but to actually progress the story. Now, there's a bunch of cutscenes coming up, but they don't contain a huge amount of the emotional character detail that I want to slow down for. So in order to summarize this, perhaps it's time for a cutscene speedrun. See if you can keep up. Here's the next 25 minutes of the game in 60 seconds, starting now. So Taion has the realization that Console K was actually the same as one of the Agnian consoles. Lanz and Uni are idiots, so they don't get it, but everyone else realizes that it's really bad. If the Kevesi console was the same as the Agnian console, then there's something very fishy going on amongst this whole war thing. We then have a nice bit of cultural exchange as the appearances of the two queens, no, not those queens, these queens, are discussed. At this stage, it's only fair to conclude that even the two queens might be secretly working together. The situation only gets worse when we see that both queens order for the destruction of Ouroboros. We then transition to a flashback to Taion's past, but to be honest, I think it feels very out of place here. I know why they did it, but honestly, I'm going to do the explanation later because it won't come up for a while yet. And then we see a bunch of generic evil dialogue between the letters of the alphabet, and now let's continue with gameplay. And by gameplay, I mean more talking to NPCs before we enter another cutscene. Oh no! Now we get the backstory as to why Ethel's colony was demoted from silver to dirt rank. There was this guy named Kamaravi who she had a rivalry with. Then one day Ethel had a chance to end it all, but she chose mercy, which the higher-ups, aka Mobius, didn't really like. So they completely stripped the colony of all its privileges, but despite all this, all the soldiers in the colony decided to stick with Ethel because they really respected her as a leader. Whew. Did you get all that? Good. You know, in my first playthrough, I don't think I paid enough attention to just how good of a person Ethel is, and she really acts like a role model for Noah. Having said that, it would be so nice if she could just walk a bit faster, stupid following NPC mission! We calmly approach the command center and... wait, there's another cutscene? So now we discuss what to do next. We need to get to Sword March, and broadly speaking, there are 3 routes to do so. One route is... So how about we just go this way instead? Which was actually what Tyon suggested all along, of course. We also have a brief discussion as to whether we actually believe in the city that Guernica mentioned. Ethel claims that there's nothing to find in that area, but we choose to believe so that we may have a chance to live on. And time. Oh. Well, I bet you prefer that to long explanations. Let me know if that style worked, because it seems like a good solution to my over-explaining problem. Now, in truth, there is actually one more cutscene, but we're gonna slow down for this one. So Mio and Senna go to get some food, and there's a whole lot of tension about these enemy rebel Agnians getting some of the colony rations, and, you know, kinda just being here. One guy comes along and talks about his dead friend who was killed by an Agnian colony, and then he actually threatens to kill Mio, and because she's at the end of her life, calls her completely worthless. Not very nice, but you can't really blame him. I really hope I'm hammering home the point that all this Ouroboros stuff and the idea that you don't participate in the war is complete insanity to these people. They know nothing else, and their whole world just got turned upside down by these random strangers, half of whom are the enemy, who basically just came along and interfered with everything. But there are also people like Laszlo. That's this guy. Mio and Senna were just waiting for their usual colony rations, but Laszlo gives them a big old plate full of food. You see, Laszlo might not understand the depths of Ouroboros and Mobius, and generally what's going on, but what he does recognize is that the brave actions of these people gave them a choice. Life in Colony 4 is hard, with the minimal provisions they receive, and every day they have to go and hunt and kill to refill their flame clocks. But now they have a choice. The choice not to fight. And then he just walks away because that's all he needs to do. Despite the hard life he has, he's thankful for what he's been given, and he's recognizing the efforts of those who made a difference. So just remember, when life gives you lemons, be a Laszlo. Now, if you thought the cutscenes were over, you're technically right, but you're also wrong. Because we now move into the lowest form of cutscene called Unvoiced text. So remember how there's a big landslide that conveniently prevents us from continuing the story? Well, Mio suggests that instead of just sitting here, we do what we can to help the colony. Mainly because it's helpful, but also because it gets a few more people to trust us. And we could definitely do with some friends right now. I do want to take a moment just to reflect that there are a lot of well-written lines that come in these unvoiced scenes. There are nice ones. Mimi, your heart's big enough for everyone to have a slice. Aww. And then there's Tyon. Lance, you need to expend some mental energy on it yourself. I get this may be tricky for you. But the reason I bring this up is to acknowledge that due to the unvoiced nature, it's going to be a bit harder to show them in these videos. I'll show the best ones if I can, but there are so many minor details like this in the various side quests that had development time and thought put into them that a lot of players will never read. But I will of course be showing them in the live streams. That's right, this was another stream plug all along. Anyway, what were we doing? Oh yeah, helping people. So we now get introduced to the info system. Instead of talking to characters to activate all the side quests, sometimes we can just observe and listen to conversations to get us the info we need. Maximum antisocial. Once we get enough info, we can discuss it together as a group. Some of them are just bonus conversations which give you XP and some extremely funny interactions, but some of them activate quests, so it's worth your time. So in this case, we learn that Colony 4 is having some problems with medical supplies. Tyon comes up with an idea, but keeps it a secret. Bolearis jump scare, and we also learn that Ethel has gone missing. We say we will look for her, but it's not as if this is part of the same quest, right? And so we head off. Now, on our way to our destination, I did a couple of fights, both of which went extremely well. We were barely touched. And so when I saw this skirmish over here, I thought we might be confident enough to take this one on. But you see, there was a minor problem. So a skirmish is one of these battles where you get to choose which side of the enemies you want to help. And I immediately saw two things. Number one, this reward down here is nice and shiny. It's a better reward because it's the harder side of the battle. We have to take on the level 15 rather than the level 13. But given we just fought those levels without any problems, what could possibly go wrong? Well, you see, there was one more minor detail that I did not pay attention to. You see these big numbers in the middle? They tell you how many enemies you're going to be facing. If you side with the right, you'll be facing 2 level 13 enemies. If you side with the left, you'll be facing 6 level 15 enemies. I didn't really notice that. You might ask how this is humanly possible, considering that this is the largest number on the screen. So do I. I don't know. So I sided with the weaker enemies, thinking that this would be just as simple as that previous fight in which we took no damage. Right? I quickly realized that Noah was taking more damage than I expected, but I was able to get into Ouroboros as a buffer. But suddenly Lanz's entire health bar completely evaporated out of nowhere. And worse still, I tried to activate Uni's Ouroboros to heal up Noah, but it was too little too late. And so Lanz and Noah both lost the Medic Gunner class, all because I didn't read. So obviously we needed to reorganize the party, but at least the good news is I can just swap Noah and Lanz over to Tactician so that they're still using a healing class and... So personally, I really want this problem to be a part of the Nuzlocke. Because Lanz and Noah haven't actually unlocked the Tactician class, and everyone else has lost it, we've basically soft-locked ourselves out of using it. I've envisioned that idea since the very beginning, and I'd really like to keep that idea going forward, because that's part of the extra strategy I want to introduce. But this Nuzlocke seems to be well and truly dying. Now yes, there are conversations we can have about the rule set and whether this thing is too hard. I'm open to those. But in all honesty, I don't think that is the problem. If you take a look back at things objectively, you will see that most of our losses have not come from difficulty, but simply a lack of focus and a bad party setup. The battles do require a lot of concentration, and I'm sure that there are some really stupid things I'm doing with my party setup. A couple of you even noticed that in the last video. Basically, I'm not as good at this game as I thought I was. And so the reason I keep plugging the live streams throughout this video is because I truly need your help. I need some of you to look through these menus with me and give me the expertise I need, because otherwise we are not making it much further. And don't be afraid, I do have the hope that this run will follow the general pattern of many Nuzlockes. Right now, our options are very limited and things look bleak, but as we progress through the game, we'll unlock more classes and the options for combat will increase, allowing the challenge to actually get easier. I am aware that many of the boss fights will contain attacks that are basically insta-kill to our party, so I appreciate that there's uncertainty there. But the main lesson that I have learned so far is that our main downfall are these group battles. We did a big boss fight with Ethel and a Mobius and we lost just a single class. And battles against single enemies go really well. But suddenly, once a group is introduced, it is that which causes our immediate downfall. And you know where these groups come from? They come from the Hoxes. And what I know is that these Hoxes are no longer our friends. They attack us in groups because they are too scared to face us alone. They chase us out of their territory despite not knowing that the fate of the world depends on our success. They tempt us with phantom rewards just to turn on us and bring us to our knees. And worst of all, they even deny us the use of the lure function. Just who do these animals think they are? I'll tell you who they are. They are wretched beings who do not deserve to walk the same ground as we do. They are dangerous creatures who seek to end all life other than their own. It fills me with a vengeance almost as strong as that which I feel towards the mighty Herbert himself. And it is that vengeance which leads me to declare that there is no more mercy against the Hoxes. No more peace deals, this is war. We are coming for you, you little stupid, furry, spiky pests. That is, in the future, when we are much higher leveled. For now, enjoy your peace. Oh look, we found Ethel! So Ethel is actually looking for medical supplies as well, and she had exactly the same idea as Tyon, which was to wait for this Agnian supply drop. Supply drops are crates that are sometimes dropped by the two castles, which are intended for particular enemy forces, but let's forget about their well-being because we want those supplies. We actually get a really nice exchange with Ethel, reinstating the point that she's willing to risk her own life to save her colony. That's why she came out here alone.
I said I couldn't afford any more casualties, and that includes you. I appreciate that you're willing, but Colony 4 is my responsibility.
Talking about avoiding casualties, you know that includes you too, Ethel, don't you?
And so eventually she lets us team up with her. So at this point, Ethel decides to join the party and becomes our first hero. Heroes are special party members who each have their own unique class. Now, I briefly talked about heroes in the rules video, but just to outline the facts. Because heroes don't have the power of Ouroboros, they can't swap to any of the other classes. This would make things a little bit tricky for our class-based Nuzlocke. So that's why my opinion is, heroes are simply irrelevant to the whole Nuzlocke deal. There's no extra action to be taken, and it functions exactly the same as a normal playthrough. That has been my opinion since the very beginning of the Nuzlocke run. Because once again, we can actually exploit this rule to help our strategy. Because this now means that whichever character we have as a hero, we want to be front and center of our aggro to draw as much damage as possible. Because in Nuzlocke terms, they're completely invincible. I'm interested to see whether this makes some particular heroes better or worse compared to a usual playthrough. We'll find out in time. For now, we need to take out these Volf, who are attacking these Agnian soldiers. Once again, Ethel puts her life in danger even though these are technically enemy soldiers. Now, after our encounter with the Hox, I was incredibly scared of this battle. The good news is that I was getting better at working with Ouroboros and managing our HP. Let me run you through it. I immediately started with Noah's Ouroboros to get some damage going, and I knew that when they finished the Ouroboros, both Noah and Mia would have high health. This led to Senna, who's now a healer, taking the aggro, but I managed to swap to Lance and activate their Ouroboros just in time. I knew that I needed to prepare some healing for Senna once she ended the interlink, so I then got into Uni's Ouroboros and tried to time her moves to heal the group as soon as they exited Ouroboros. And I then immediately swapped to Lance to get more healing, and somehow we survived. It turns out that when you're paying attention, this game isn't too bad, but I do continuously need to put all my focus on the healing and managing the Ouroboros. I can only assume that Ethel's presence saved the day. I've said this already, but I repeat, that in my first playthrough I just never noticed how wise Ethel was. She has some of those incredibly philosophic lines, and is all round a really good leader.
The actions you believe to be correct don't always lead to good outcomes. Some situations aren't salvageable. That's the nature of war.
We send off some husks, retrieve the supplies, and I also took the chance to get a golden container that was previously out of reach. We then return to Colony 4 to a furious Bolearis, who eventually realizes he can't convince Ethel to do anything different. And Noah realizes that the Kavesi trio never really thanked Ethel for her save all those years ago. A nice send-off to the quest, as we obtain Ethel's class. This is a huge moment for our Nuzlocke. For the first time, our number of available classes increases, and the menu expands massively to show you just how many heroes and classes there are to unlock. Ethel's hero quest was mandatory for the main story, but most of them are optional in a normal playthrough. However, we will be needing as many classes as we can get, and in the next couple of videos we'll start talking strategy regarding which classes to get and when. Ideally, I want to show all of these quests for the purposes of character and world building, but we'll see how the run develops. Now each time we unlock a new class, the most important thing to do next is also unlock it on the other 5 characters. This is especially true here because Ethel is actually about to leave the party again from a story event, and she's not going to come back for a while. Since you gain more class unlock points the more people of that class are in your party, I want to do this grinding now before we lose Ethel to make it faster. We also just got to level 20, which means we unlock the second Master Art slot and second Gem slot, which is a big step that opens more flexibility for our party, and we will need to work out how to set that up. Which is kind of a good place to start bringing this video towards its conclusion. I'm going to do some of that class grinding off screen before the first livestream next week, so that we can actually make some story progress then. But as I've mentioned, I might need some advice on how to set up the party, and there are other questions still to answer. Remember all those little clarifications about the rule set that I've done some acrobatics around this video? Well, now is the time to actually talk about those. So to be clear, there's no more gameplay progress in this video. The next few minutes are just a few other topics I wanted to talk about and the stuff I didn't explain at the start of the video, which I know is a bit long and kind of boring, but I want to put it somewhere, but I didn't want to make it its own video. Let's get it over with. I really hope that you now understand why I wanted people to wait until the end of this video to give their impressions on the current difficulty of the Nuzlocke. Because I feel like a lot has changed in the second half of this video. Ever since we lowered the difficulty, gained access to Ouroboros powers, and have learned the lessons of actually reading and understanding how the game works, thank you to everyone who left feedback about Uni's healing ring from the first video, my gosh am I stupid. Ever since we did all of that, I am feeling a bit more confident about the success of this run than I previously was. It's still going to be difficult, and we've had a rough start, but maybe that's just a handicap to create better content. Okay, but seriously, now comes the time when we need to decide the remaining details of the rules. So let me now finally outline to you what my personal preferred rule set is after the roller coaster of experiences after the 2 videos so far. It goes like this. Point number 1, the basic outline. Classes are lost when a character reaches 0 HP, but we only count 1 loss per character per fight. And if we get immediately thrust into another fight, say after a cutscene, that's okay, we only apply the class loss at the first realistic opportunity to do so. Point number 2, Master Arts and Master Skills. The first 2 slots can be free choice from any class regardless of our Nuzlocke status, but the last slot has to follow the Nuzlocke rules based on what classes that particular character has lost. If there is no legal option, we can simply remove it and have an empty slot. Also, I say we're allowed to use Nopon coins to rank up the class to unlock the master abilities, even if that character has lost that class already. This means that the game won't get too restricted too quickly, but it does up the resource management needed. Point number 3, heroes. Do not count whatsoever, and we can use whoever we like, since we have to rely entirely on their AI, and this allows us to actually change our strategy towards our heroes so that we play the game in a slightly unusual way, which was the original point of the whole Nuzlocke idea. Point number 4, drumroll please! All of the characters' original classes are reinstated due to the Pokeballs technicality. Thank you to everyone who informed me that in a standard Pokemon Nuzlocke, the rule set doesn't actually apply until you unlock Pokeballs and thus can catch other Pokemon. A lot of people mention this, so much so that I fear that if I don't implement this, I risk losing my audience. And the translated suggestion into Xenoblade 3 is that none of the class losses from the first video counted until we reach this scene here where we unlock the full class system. And that would have made the first video a bit easier. It would also not have led to the difficulties of the prologue, valid tactics, Herbert, or the mysterious enemy fight, and made just about the entire narrative script I came up with completely irrelevant. And that's an example of how sometimes our mistakes can still lead to success. We might as well do this to make things easier, and it breaks the soft lock on Tactician as long as Tyon doesn't lose it again, so for about 5 minutes. And finally, point number 5 is one I've not actually mentioned at all up until now. You see, maybe this is a bit underhanded, but I specifically decided to keep this one final rule as a secret until the very end of this video, so that when I see your comments, I could somewhat try and distinguish which pieces of feedback actually have the full context of events and which ones might not. I'm not going to make any sweeping generalizations, it was kind of just an experiment, and I'm not sure if it was really a good idea, but we're here now. The final extra rule is to do with Ascension quests. For every class in the game, there is a hero quest which unlocks it, but later in the game, there is a second hero quest which ups the maximum rank from 10 to 20. And my proposed rule is that when we complete an Ascension quest, all of the characters regain access to the relevant class of that hero. Everyone who previously lost it can use it again. Now that might sound pretty powerful, but I actually don't think it is. Ascension quests are difficult in their own right, and we have to take a risk by going after a challenging, optional objective. I saw a few other people also suggest we should get some kind of bonus from Ascension quests, so thank you for the suggestions, but again, just to clarify, this is one that I've had planned since the very beginning. Because this bonus would conveniently encourage us to explore more of the character and world building throughout the game. And I'll be very transparent that that is also a big part of why I want to introduce this rule. And that is it. This is my proposed rule set. I think I've mentioned everything, including all of the little caveats I've thought of along the way. It's a little bit easier than I was originally planning at the start of the first video, but I think that's alright, because ultimately I want this series to make it to the end of the game. And if it gets way too easy or way too hard, we can amend something along the way. So this is my personal preference as to how the run should work, but do leave me your feedback and comments. There have already been a number of interesting suggestions. Just remember to take the full rule set into account to keep the difficulty balanced. I'll post any major or frequently suggested feedback in the pinned comment, and if there are any changes to my rule set, I'll talk about them at the start of the next stream or the next video. Don't worry, I know you all want me to skip the intros and get into the gameplay, so I'll make sure to keep things at an appropriately fast pace. Speaking of pace, there's one more subject I want to talk about at the very end of this video. I appreciate that most of the viewers have probably clicked off by now because there were a lot of things in this video that I feel are not up to the right standard. The end section here is one thing. I left that a bit long on purpose because, we got this far, I'm running out of time to make the video, and I need to talk about it somewhere. But there are other parts of this video that I know are a bit slow, or too rambly, or just, I don't know, don't feel good enough. And I want to mention that I've really struggled to make this video, if you couldn't tell by the fact that it took nearly 3 years. There are plenty of reasons why that is, and I ramble about a few of those in my other video talking about some of the past and future of the channel. By the way, that video's a train wreck too, but it is what it is. If I talk about this now, it'll be better in the long run. But I just want you to know that I have really tried to improve this video. Some of those sections that are too slow or too rambly are genuinely my 3rd or 4th or 5th drafts of that section that is better and is shorter than they originally were. I've put in a lot of effort to try and improve things, and there's so much hidden time I've spent developing this that you're not able to see. And I think a lot of that has been bottling up inside me for quite a long time. So one more thing that I'm going to be doing in the next few weeks is streaming what I'm calling director's commentary on all of the Nuzlocke videos so far. I'm going to be doing a live watch along to my own videos and pausing and talking about various ideas or things in the video that were changed, etc. This is both for your interest to learn a bit more about me, how my brain functions, and what the process is behind these videos to an extent, but actually the real person who will benefit from this is me. I need to get all of these thoughts out of my head because this video became a bit of a love-hate monster to me. I still like what I've created, I'm proud I've put the effort into it, and I'm happy that we're here. But it's also been so rough at some points along the way. And even though that's true of all projects, including the future of this series, I'm sure, I really just want to have this one done and behind me. I think I've been struggling recently because I've had so many other ideas and wishes to start new projects and videos that I can't because I feel like I'm stuck working on this one. But I chose to keep at it, and now we're finally here. This end segment is being recorded literally just a week before this video goes live, because I wanted to save it as the very last thing I had to do. This voice you're hearing right now is nearly 3 years older than the one you heard in the middle. Not the one at the beginning, because that was actually recorded more recently. Oops, that's the sort of thing you'll hear in the director's commentary. I recognize if you think this video isn't as good as the first one. But I'm now here with a confidence that I've learned a lot along the way, and with a renewed energy to work on videos again. And you can help make all of that a success by supporting this video and joining my very first real Nuzlocke livestream, which will be next Saturday, the 20th of June, at whichever of these times happens to be yours. Further stream updates will be in the community posts tab on YouTube, and there are a few other clarifications about this video in the pinned comment as feedback arises. Okay, ramble's over. This is genuinely the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching this video, of whatever quality you deem it. But remember, we keep moving forward with the chance to live on in a brighter tomorrow.